everybody, this is Pastor Susan, and welcome to our final day this week of devotions as we are considering the great invitation of Jesus to follow me. That's what Jesus said to the disciples, follow me. And today we're going to be talking about two of the disciples who are specifically named in John chapter 1, where we have resided all week this week. I hope that this has been an opportunity for you to dive just a little bit deeper into this hippy dippity gospel, as Pastor Olivia calls it. I love that. Good job, Olivia. But I love the story that we find here. One of starting with John the Baptist, who has received a calling on his own life and who has recognized who Jesus is as the Messiah, who has disciples who have listened to John, who have been mentored by John, and who take him at his word when he says, this is the Messiah. And some of those disciples leave him to follow Jesus. Today we're going to be looking at verses 40 to 42. This is the conclusion of this section of chapter 1. And listen to these words that we find some very important things that we want to remember as we close out this week. One of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. Okay, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which is translated anointed. He brought Simon to Jesus, who looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You are to be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. All right, I want to talk about Andrew first this morning, because we often just gloss over Andrew. We just jump right on into Peter, because Peter's he's the guy. Let's start with Andrew, because Andrew is an important part of Jesus's story. He is the link that we have. We know that he was a disciple of John, and he is that link between John the Baptist, who prepares the way for the Messiah, and the Messiah's life and ministry. So, Andrew comes, he recognizes who Jesus is, he follows Jesus, he goes and sees who Jesus is, and what does Andrew do? The first thing that he does is he goes and he tells his brother. Now, we know a little bit about, not from this text, but from other texts, that Simon and Andrew were fishers, so they spent a lot of time together, and they were like all brothers. One of the things I love about the series The Chosen is the relationship that we see happening or imagined between these brothers, because they're guys who didn't always see eye to eye, and they kidded with each other, and they lived their lives. But Andrew was very concerned that his brother know, because they were both raised in the faith and they wanted to follow Messiah when the Messiah came. And so they, of course he shared this with them. But that's not all the story about Andrew, because we see Andrew showing up throughout the Gospels as someone who was leading others to follow Jesus. We remember the story of the feeding of the 5,000. You might remember that story from Matthew's Gospel. And it says that there were 5,000 men plus women and children. So there could have been, how many? We don't know, 15, 20,000 people. It could have been. And they get there toward the end of the day. Jesus has been teaching. They said, we have nothing, we need to send these people home, because they need to eat. It's been going all day long. God, Jesus, you're a good preacher, but they need some sustenance for the body as well as for the spirit. And Jesus says, well, you give them something to eat. And they said, well, what do you want us to do? We can't magically do anything here. What are we supposed to do? Well, Andrew is the one who goes out and he finds a kid. You remember the story with 5 loaves and 2 fish? And he takes it to Jesus And Jesus uses that gift to feed the hungry people there. Andrew was always leading people to Jesus. Now, that's something that we need to consider for our lives as well. Who are we leading to Jesus? Who are we inviting to come and see, whether it is worship or it's in service or it is a meal shared together or it is a Bible study? How are we encouraging family and friends to meet Jesus for themselves and to grow together? Because we certainly don't have all the answers. But the story that we just read continues. And Jesus meets Simon, and he looks Simon in the eye. I can just see Jesus doing this. He looks at him deeply, and he says, Simon, son of John, you are now Peter, which means Cephas. Cephas is the Greek word for Peter, which means rocky. Because you know what? I know this. When Jesus was looking Peter in the eye, he knew Peter was kind of rough around the edges. But he also knew that he was a diamond in the rough. And that God was going to do something amazing through this guy. Now, I don't know, I get very emotional about this when I think about Peter because he's so much like all of us, right? Rough around the edges, he will not be perfect throughout his life, Peter. But he is the rock upon which Jesus will build his church, that profession of faith. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Can we say that today? And can we see in each other and in ourselves the grace that Christ had for Peter and for you and for me? God sees us for who we can be as well as who we are. And so today, let us bring ourselves rough around the edges, maybe way far out from the way that we are being called to. But listen once again to the call. Follow me. Follow me. Let's do that. And let's be like Andrew, who invites others to know this one that we call Lord. And let's be like Peter, one who made many mistakes and yet continued to receive God's call. Amen and amen.